Thank you very much. Hi everyone, my name is Soroush. Thank you, David, for the introduction. So this presentation, we will look into the two concepts of localization and internationalization in the context of our digital content era. We will look into the XML-based vocabularies that are being used in these two areas. And then finally, I will introduce and we'll look into the FREME project, which is for enrichment of the content using the available data on the web. And finally, we'll get to see how oXygen is doing so far in the areas of localization and internationalization. By the way, these are shorter forms. And possible directions for the future of oXygen. So starting with localization, it's not only about translation, but it's also about adapting your content to the local that you're delivering to. So you want to make sure that the content is consumable by the end user in that certain local that you're going for. So it's not only translation; it's all sort of things like the shapes, like the terminology, and so on and so forth. So how information technologies have reshaped localization in the recent decades is through the main contribution of IT in localization is making the content reusable through effective storage, which is pretty much XML, and making the whole process of localization as an automated or semi-automated workflow. So we'll get into there in a second, but so in modern localization workflow would include activities like terminology management that you want to have for your own context that you're working on, or for using the content that has been translated already, so you want to reuse that and have translation candidates. So as I said, it's tending to be automated, but why so far is semi-automated? Automated. The only node that is not completely automated is apparently in translation, but it has also dramatically changed. So if old-fashioned translator would work like this through dozens of dictionaries, glossaries, and documentation, today they're working through computer-assisted translation tools. So you get not only the entire content, but only segments or different sentences goes to the translator, and they will immediately get the relevant glossary just needed for that content, and dictionaries and suggested translation for the parts. So for today, if you want to do a localization project, the workflow would look like pretty much like this. So you have extraction from the native format, which is generally HTML. So you go through the enrichment, translation, and merging, and going back again to the native format. So as you see, it's pretty much a round trip here, and there is XML vocabularies here for the exchange between each of these nodes in the workflow. So again, it's for effective storage, and it's also for automation. And it's automation that would, at the end of the day, just reduce the cost, and so it's financially very much motivated. So the next concept of this field is called internationalization. So this step is usually applied before the localization. So you do internationalize your content, you design it in a way to have less barriers to the localizations. You can add metadata related to enrich your content to again make localization easier and less costful. So, and here we have also XML, and the most widely used standard here is called Internationalisation Tagset, or ITS. So the current version is 2.0. It's a W3C recommendations, and it's basically a general set of attributes, mostly for localization and internationalization metadata. So how it works is that, well, it's pretty widely known. I'm sure all you know. So it introduced 19 data categories, but today I'll just look into only 3 of them. And ITS is very well integrated in HTML. As I said, it's the main source format for localization projects. And it's very easy to leverage and include in other XML vocabularies as extensions. So if we want to look at these first two data categories, which are translate and terminology, which are pretty straightforward. So if you have a span of text that you don't want to be translated, you want to note your translator or tool not to translate that, or you have another piece of text that is term, so it needs to be translated with that in mind, and you can give different references for the translator or for the tools. So the next one is the text analysis, which is a very important and very widely used in different ways, the data category. So you can it provides annotation for lexical or conceptual information. So you can have your entities marked up, you can have your terminology marked up, given different references, and so on and so forth. So if you want to look at the example of the ITS here, so the original, the source sentence is in blue. So London is the capital of the United Kingdom, but you can see how it has been enriched here by the ITS-TAs for text analysis. So we know that the reference to that is on DBpedia. And we know that the class of this this span is a place, and so for capital, and so for the United Kingdom. So we have the references from different sources, so you can map into there. But how this information is usually produced, it could be manually, but it's as you can see, it's not very efficient to do it manually. So there's been many initiatives to automate this process, and one of them that I want to introduce to you is called FREME project. So FREME project is about enriching metadata, enriching your content with the metadata harvested from available sources on web, like Wikipedia or DBpedia, or you can feed it with your own terminology. FREME has introduced 4 use cases, but 2 of them I think are most relevant to oXygen and to this event. So first is the enrichment of ebooks for publishing purposes, and the second one is enrichment for further translation or localization. So here I want to do a short demo. Okay, so it's CK Editor. It's a very simple editor for HTML, and FREME has been it's been implemented as a sort of as a plugin. So you can so the API can just be plugged in here. So you can see these are all the CK Editor native tools, but this panel here is for FREME. And if I want to feed that with a very simple HTML paragraph, I come here, I paste it. Why it's not? So the paragraph is very simple. We can see how it looks in HTML, and if we go here, so we have different options provided by FREME: translate, detecting concepts or terminology. So if you want to try the concepts here, and we can have different sources that you can harvest data from. So I want to just go with Wikipedia and see what it gives. So we can see that two keywords were detected and enriched by metadata. If we look at here, so we have all the ITS data here. So we saw that XML and Prague were marked up. And what do they mean here? It's again with regard to the text analysis data category of ITS. So we know that according to the web ontology, XML is a thing. So it's not a place or organization or a person, which is the main categories there. And then we know that there is there are links to DBpedia with XML, and we know that with 97% confidence that it is correct. And the next one is Prague. It has been enriched, so we know that by different ontologies, it's either a settlement or location or city. And we have a link to DBpedia again. So it's how the FREME project is meant to work. And it can be leveraged for different editors. But the next standard, which is the most popular standard in localization for exchange of information in within different nodes of the workflow, is called XML Localization Interchange File Format, or XLiFF. So the latest family version is the major release is XLiFF 2, and so what it offers is effective storage and exchange of bytext formats. So you can have, so we have a multimodal structure of the XLiFF. So you can have one core which has the minimum set of markup for effective storage of the localizable data, and then we have like different modules, so you can add metadata, glossaries, and all sorts of things. So the current version that is an OASIS standard and has been released is 2.0. It has a core and 8 modules. The next version, which is right now under development, is 2.1. So what 2.1 has, it has actually embraced and adopted ITS. So that is the main concept of XLiFF 2 families. We are going to have all the other standards inside and within modules of XLiFF. So and the next thing of the next version is the validation platform. So we're not having only XSD or RelaxNG for the very complicated data model of XLiFF. I'll just show you in a second. But we have Schematron and NVDL developed and being officially part of the standard. So the idea of XLiFF is to have we have different levels. So the highest level is unit. So probably you have a paragraph or something, like, the logical block of a content that you want to translate. Then you have the segment, which is smallest portion, which is usually sentences, and then you have the source and target. So you have the source in source language, and in target language, as I said, it's a bytext format. So I want to show the usage of and support of oXygen for XLiFF. So what oXygen has so far is just XLiFF framework, which has only the XSD schema for the validation. It will give you in author mode, so there is the CSS style sheet, so you can have like fairly user-friendly layout here. So one of I want to show three use cases for validation. So the first one is the ID uniqueness. So as I said, here you can see the unit, which would be our main block here. And so we have segments, right? And then we have some markup and some inline elements. It's like the docbook inline codes. So the point of ID uniqueness is to have all of the IDs of this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy to be unique within the scope of unit. Okay, so we are not having global IDs, but very local IDs at the level of unit. So if you see that they're all repeating the same IDs here, but since they are in different units, they're fine. And so it is one of the features that I will be adding to oXygen very soon. It's the but I'm just having the NVDL file here is the validation part. So if I see that this document is valid, but if I change any of these IDs to the, so if I want to make that bad ID and this one bad ID as well, so you will get the error of the ID duplication for both of these guys. And okay, so the second use case is a very common use case actually in localization. So if you look at the source sentences, we have sentence A, comma, sentence B, comma, sentence C, full stop. Okay, so this is the flow of the text in English, but when it has been translated sentence by sentence, so if you want to put it back to make sense of it as a paragraph, you want to put phrase A, phrase B, phrase C, phrase C, phrase B, so it will be kind of a reverse order than the source language, okay? So for that we have, so for sources, we have the usual order, so it's 1, 2, 3, but targets can actually swap orders. So you can see here, phrase A is at its own place, but phrase B and C have swapped the places. Okay? So this is a valid case. But if I remove here, so we'll get the error, yeah, that saying that the corresponding target element here, so it has specified an order which is different than its own, and it will give you the error. So we are having this advanced validation to have the entire data model actually implemented within XML. And the next thing is, it's also kind of demonstration of how we use ITS in XLIFF 2.1. Okay, so if you remember from the text analysis, so this is how we are going to implement ITS module inside XLIFF. So we are having our marker, which is MRK, and we are saying we are giving a reference to the identifier of the marker for Prague. And if we are giving the reference, actually I said about text analysis of ITS, it has pretty complicated rules of validation, which could not be regulated when it's ITS standalone, but when it is inside XLIFF, we can regulate and we can expand our own rules on it. So one of these rules is that if you are specifying a reference, so you cannot give any source already, so you can have either of them. So if before you could not get, if you could pass these invalid instances of the ITS and XLIFF usage, but for XLIFF 2.1 with ITS inside it, you would not be able to do it anymore, and you would have only the valid cases. So if it's telling me that if the ref is used, the source and the other identifier and source, it can be either reference, either one of these cannot be used. And so to conclude and get back to the oXygen, so I just showed the current support of oXygen of XLIFF 2 in oXygen, and so in my opinion, of course, the possible directions for oXygen in the area would be improvement of XLIFF framework, so to support the actual recommended by the specification and by the technical committee validation artifacts, which is for 2.0 right now and for 2.1 in future. But it could be also a nice idea to kind of leverage from the FREME project and have it inside inside oXygen, and also improve the support of internationalization through implementation of ITS and support of ITS for different vocabularies which already use the ITS markup. And that's it for me. Thank you. So, no, thank you.